Through the antiseptic halls of Westlake Memorial, a pregnant woman's cries went unanswered. Danielle Brooks, educated, composed, black, watched in disbelief as Dr. Whitlow tore her medical referral to shreds. "Always think they're entitled," someone muttered as Security Officer Maddox snapped cold metal around her wrists. They saw only what they wanted: another black woman to dismiss, another problem to remove. They never thought to ask who her husband was. They never imagined Gregory Brooks, hospital board chairman, would walk through those same doors minutes later, his quiet rage more dangerous than any shouted threat. By handcuffing Danielle, they hadn't just mistreated a patient, they'd unknowingly lit the fuse that would expose decades of buried injustice and bring their carefully protected world crashing down. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. Danielle Brooks rubbed her swollen belly as she stepped through the sliding glass doors of Westlake Memorial Hospital. The cool October air gave way to the sterile smell of disinfectant and artificial air freshener. Her doctor's note was folded neatly in her purse, creased from the 3 times she'd reread it that morning. "Just a precaution," Dr. Wilson had assured her yesterday during her checkup. "With your history of preterm labor symptoms, I'd rather have you monitored early than sorry later." Danielle nodded to herself, remembering the words. At 32 weeks pregnant, she wasn't taking any chances. The mild contractions had started around dawn. Nothing severe, but enough to make her call out from her community advocacy job and follow her OB's instructions. The emergency room wasn't crowded for a Tuesday morning. Danielle counted 6 other patients in the waiting area: an elderly man with an oxygen tank, a mother with a feverish toddler, a college-aged boy holding a bloodied towel around his hand, and 3 others flipping through outdated magazines. She approached the front desk where a young nurse with tired eyes looked up from her computer. "Good morning," Danielle said, her voice calm despite her discomfort. "I'm having some mild contractions. I'm 32 weeks along, and my obstetrician wrote this note asking for early observation." She slid the paper across the counter with her ID and insurance card. The nurse, her badge read Kimberly, barely glanced at the note before sliding a clipboard toward Danielle. "Fill this out and have a seat. We'll call you when it's your turn." "Thank you," Danielle said, taking the clipboard. She found a seat near the window and began filling out the familiar forms: name, date of birth, insurance information, emergency. Contact. Under emergency contact, she wrote Gregory Brooks and listed his cell number. She hesitated at the relationship field before writing husband. 20 minutes passed. The college boy was called in. Then the elderly man. Danielle shifted uncomfortably as another contraction tightened across her abdomen. She breathed through it the way she'd learned in her childbirth classes. When it passed, she glanced at her watch. The mother with the toddler was called next, then a man who had arrived after Danielle. She frowned, gathering her purse and the completed paperwork. Approaching the desk again, she smiled politely at Kimberly. "Excuse me, I finished the forms some time ago. I'm still having contractions, and they seem to be getting a bit stronger." Kimberly barely looked up. "You need to sit down and wait like everyone else, ma'am." Danielle blinked, taken aback by the dismissive tone. "I understand you're busy, but my doctor specifically mentioned we have a triage system," Kimberly cut her off. "Unless you're in active labor or emergency distress, you wait your turn." As Danielle turned to walk back to her seat, she overheard Kimberly mutter to another staff member behind the desk, "Always think they're entitled." The word stung. Danielle sat down, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She'd encountered microaggressions before, plenty of them during her career in community advocacy, but it never got easier, especially not now when she was worried about her baby. Another 30 minutes passed. More patients came and went. Danielle's contractions were now coming every 12 minutes. She was about to approach the desk again when the ER doors swung open and a tall woman in a white coat strode in. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her face wore the expression of someone perpetually inconvenienced. "Kimberly, where's the chart on the MVA coming in?" the doctor barked. "Right here, Dr. Whitlow," Kimberly replied, handing over a tablet. Dr. Whitlow scanned the waiting room, her gaze lingering on Danielle for a moment before her lips tightened into a thin line. She approached the desk, whispered something to Kimberly, then looked directly at Danielle. "You, the pregnant one. Come here," she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Danielle stood, gathering her things, and walked to the desk. "Yes, doctor." Dr. Karen Whitlow looked down at her, eyes cold. "You've been complaining about waiting?" "Not complaining," Danielle clarified calmly. "I'm having regular contractions at 32 weeks, and my OB gave me this note recommending early observation." She reached into her purse for the note again. Dr. Whitlow snatched it from her hand, glanced at it for all of 2 seconds, then tore it in half. "This doesn't override this hospital's intake protocols," she said, dropping the torn paper onto the counter. "We have actual emergencies to deal with." Danielle stared at the torn note in shock. "My doctor felt it was necessary. Well, I'm the head of this ER, and I say it's not." Dr. Whitlow cut her off. "If you're not in active labor, you can wait or go home. Your choice." As if on cue, a strong contraction gripped Danielle. She gasped, clutching the edge of the counter. I think they're getting stronger," she managed between breaths. Dr. Whitlow rolled her eyes. "Dramatic displays won't get you seen faster." Danielle breathed through the pain, counting the seconds. This one lasted nearly 45 seconds. When it subsided, she looked Dr. Whitlow in the eye. "That wasn't a display. That was a contraction. I need to be examined." "What you need is to lower your voice and follow protocol," Dr. Whitlow snapped, then turned to Kimberly. "Call security. We have a disruptive patient." "What?" Danielle's eyes widened. "I'm not being disruptive. I'm trying to advocate for my baby's health." But Kimberly was already picking up the phone. The other patients in the waiting room were watching now, some with concern, others with uncomfortable curiosity. No one spoke up. Within minutes, a security officer pushed through the doors. He was tall, with broad shoulders and close-cropped brown hair. His name badge read, Officer Tyler Maddox. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, directing the question to Dr. Whitlow rather than Danielle. "This patient is causing a disturbance," Dr. Whitlow said, "demanding preferential treatment and getting agitated." "That's not true," Danielle protested. "I'm having contractions and just asked to be seen." Officer Maddox turned to her, his expression hardening. "ID, please." "What? Why do you need my ID? I'm a patient here." Despite her confusion, Danielle reached into her purse for her wallet. "Standard procedure," Officer Maddox said, though something in his tone suggested otherwise. He took her driver's license, examining it longer than necessary. "Danielle Brooks, what brings you here today besides an attitude problem?" Danielle felt her heart rate increase. "I don't have an attitude problem. I'm 32 weeks pregnant. And having contractions. My OB wrote a note recommending observation, which Dr. Whitlow just tore up." Officer Maddox exchanged a look with Dr. Whitlow. "Mind if I check your bag, Ms. Brooks?" "Yes, I do mind," Danielle said firmly. "There's no reason to search my belongings. I'm here for medical care." Refusal to cooperate, Officer Maddox noted aloud as if documenting it. "Ma'am, in a hospital setting, security has the right to check bags if there's a concern about disruptive behavior." "What concern?" "I haven't done anything wrong." Danielle's voice rose slightly with frustration. "There, right there," Dr. Whitlow pointed. Raising her voice, aggressive behavior. Before Danielle could protest further, Officer Maddox grabbed her purse. "I'll be taking a look at this." "This is ridiculous," Danielle said, another contraction beginning to build. She breathed through clenched teeth as Officer Maddox dumped the contents of her purse onto the counter, her wallet, phone, keys, a small bottle of hand sanitizer, a pack of tissues, and a granola bar spilled out. "Nothing here," he admitted, sounding almost disappointed. "Of course there's nothing there," Danielle said, gathering her belongings as the contractions subsided. "Now, can I please see a doctor about my contractions?" Officer Maddox ignored her question. "Ma'am, you've been loitering and causing a disturbance. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises or face detention." "Loitering?" Danielle was incredulous. I'm a patient. I've been waiting to be seen. That's it, Officer Maddox said, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. Turn around, hands behind your back. You're arresting me? For what? Panic rose in Danielle's chest. Disturbing the peace, Officer Maddox said, roughly grabbing her wrist. You have the right to remain silent. This is insane, Danielle gasped, as he cuffed her hands behind her back. The cold metal bit into her wrists. I'm pregnant. I need medical attention. You'll get medical attention at the station if needed, Officer Maddox said, gripping her arm tightly. Please, Danielle begged, looking around the waiting room. The other patients averted their eyes. No one spoke up. No one intervened. I need to call my husband. Officer Maddox smirked. You'll get one phone call when you're processed. As he began to drag her toward the exit, Danielle's phone fell from the counter and clattered to the floor. She watched helplessly as it slid under a chair, her last connection to Gregory disappearing from view. The last thing she saw before the doors closed behind her was Dr. Whitlow's satisfied expression and the silent faces of patients who chose to look away. Danielle found herself in a small room adjacent to the hospital security office. It wasn't a jail cell, but it might as well have been. The space was barely 10 feet square, with a metal bench bolted to the wall and a small, high window that let in a pale rectangle of light. Her hands were still cuffed behind her back, making it impossible to find a comfortable position with her pregnant belly. Please, she said to Officer Maddox as he checked his phone by the door. The handcuffs are hurting my wrists, and I need to call my husband. Hospital policy is to secure disruptive individuals until they calm down, he replied without looking up. Dr. Whitlow will determine when you're ready for release. Dr. Whitlow is the one who escalated this situation, Danielle protested. I was just trying to get medical care for my baby. Officer Maddox finally pocketed his phone and looked at her. That's not how she tells it. Says you became aggressive and threatened staff. That's a lie, Danielle said, her voice breaking. There, we're witnesses. Other patients saw what happened. Nobody's backing your story, he said with a shrug. Now sit tight. I've got paperwork to file. As he left, locking the door behind him, Danielle closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She needed to stay calm for the baby's sake. Another contraction gripped her, and she bit her lip to keep from crying out. They were definitely getting stronger. Meanwhile, on the main floor of the ER, Dr. Karen Whitlow was in the security office with Officer Maddox, reviewing footage from the waiting room cameras. We need to delete this, she said, pointing to the screen showing Danielle's interaction at the front desk. It doesn't match the report I'm filing. Already on it, Tyler said, clicking through the system settings. Give me 2 minutes to wipe the last hour of footage. Technical glitch happens all the time. A young nurse trainee named Maya Reyes passed by the office, slowing when she heard Dr. Whitlow's voice. The door was slightly ajar. What about the pregnant woman's complaint? Maya overheard Tyler ask. What complaint? Dr. Whitlow replied. A disruptive individual was removed from the premises for threatening staff and creating a hostile environment. That's all that happened here. Maya frowned. She'd glimpsed the scene in the waiting room earlier. A well-dressed pregnant black woman speaking calmly to Kimberly at the desk. Nothing about it had seemed threatening. As she continued down the hall, Maya checked the intake log on her tablet. Danielle Brooks, 32, pregnant, 32 weeks gestation, presenting with mild contractions. The note section had been updated. Patient became verbally aggressive. Security called. Patient detained for staff safety. Maya's frown deepened. Something wasn't right. She approached her supervisor, Nurse Janet. That pregnant woman who was here earlier. What happened to her? Janet glanced around before lowering her voice. Word is she got mouthy with Dr. Whitlow and security had to take her downstairs. Downstairs, Maya repeated. She's in a holding cell, but she was having contractions. Look, Maya, Janet said. You're still new here. Some advice? Stay out of Dr. Whitlow's business if you want to keep your job. Maya bit her lip, nodding slowly. I understand. But she didn't. Not really. Back in the holding room, Danielle shifted uncomfortably on the hard bench. The contractions were coming every 8 minutes now. She needed water, a bathroom, and medical attention, in that order. The door opened, and Officer Maddox returned. "Your paperwork's been filed," he said. "Dr. Whitlow has recommended you be held for observation until you're deemed no longer a threat." "A threat?" Danielle repeated incredulously. "I'm a pregnant woman who needed medical help. Please, at least, call my husband. His name is Gregory Brooks." Officer Maddox scoffed. "What's he gonna do? Bail you out with food stamps?" The casual racism of the comment hit Danielle like a slap. She stared at him, momentarily speechless. "That's what I thought," Maddox said, misinterpreting her silence. "Look, make this easy on yourself. Admit you were disruptive, apologize, and maybe Dr. Whitlow will let you back upstairs for a checkup." "I won't apologize for something I didn't do," Danielle said firmly. "And I need water. It's dangerous for a pregnant woman to get dehydrated." "Should have thought of that before causing a scene," Maddox said, turning to leave. "I'll check on you in an hour." The door closed again, and Danielle felt tears welling in her eyes. This couldn't be happening. Not in 2025, not in a respected hospital, not to her. Yet it was. The same institutional racism that she fought against in her advocacy work was now targeting her directly. Another contraction came, stronger than before. Danielle counted through it. 60 seconds. That wasn't good. They were getting longer and more intense. She thought of Gregory, probably still in his morning board meeting, unaware that his wife and unborn child were in distress. Time passed agonizingly slowly. Danielle's mouth was dry, her wrists raw from the handcuffs. She'd lost track of how long she'd been in the room when the door opened again. It wasn't Officer Maddox this time, but the young nurse trainee she'd seen briefly in the waiting room. Maya Reyes quickly glanced over her shoulder before slipping inside and closing the door. "I can't stay long," she whispered, pulling a bottle of water from her scrub's pocket. "Here, drink this." Danielle looked at her gratefully. "Thank you, but I can't. My hands—" She turned slightly to show the handcuffs. "Oh my God," Maya gasped, quickly uncapping the bottle. She held it to Danielle's lips, letting her drink deeply. "I'm so sorry about this. I don't understand what's happening." "Neither do I," Danielle said after drinking half the bottle. "I came in with contractions, and somehow I ended up arrested." "You're not technically arrested," Maya said. "You're being detained for observation. But it's wrong. I checked your intake form. You should be upstairs getting monitored." "Can you help me?" Danielle asked, hope flickering for the first time since this nightmare began. Maya bit her lip. "I'm trying, but Dr. Whitlow has a lot of power here, and Officer Maddox, they work together a lot. I could lose my job." "I understand," Danielle said, though her heart sank. "But my baby—" "I'll get help," Maya promised. "This isn't right." "Can you call my husband?" Danielle asked. "His name is Gregory Brooks. His number is—" "I don't have my phone with me," Maya interrupted apologetically. "But I'll find a way to contact him. What does he do? Maybe someone in the hospital knows him?" Danielle hesitated, remembering Gregory's words from early in their relationship. "Keep my position quiet," he'd told her. "I want people to know you as Danielle, not as the chairman's wife." But this was an emergency. "He works with the hospital," she said carefully. "Like a vendor or something?" Maya asked, glancing nervously at the door. "Something like that," Danielle replied. Another contraction hit, and she couldn't suppress a groan. "That looked strong," Maya said worriedly. "How far apart are they?" "About 7 minutes now," Danielle said when she could speak again, and lasting longer. Maya's expression grew serious. "That's not good. You could be going into actual labor. I need to get you upstairs." "Dr. Whitlow won't allow it," Danielle said, remembering the doctor's cold eyes. "Then I'll find someone who—" "Will override her," Maya insisted. "Just hold on." As Maya turned to leave, Danielle called after her. "Wait, there's something you should know about Gregory." Maya paused at the door. "He didn't want me to use this," Danielle said, "but I'm afraid for our baby now." She took a deep breath. Gregory Brooks is the chairman of the hospital board. Maya's eyes widened. The chairman? Are you serious? Danielle nodded. Please find him. I will, Maya promised, her expression shifting from shock to determination. I'll make this right. After Maya left, Danielle leaned her head against the wall. She thought about how Gregory had warned her about institutional cruelty. The system isn't built for us, he'd told her once after she'd complained about being followed in a department store. Even with all my accomplishments, all my education, all my power, in some eyes, I'm still just a black man who doesn't belong. At the time, she'd argued that things were changing, that her work in community advocacy was making a difference. Now, handcuffed in a hospital basement while having contractions, she wondered if he had been right all along. Meanwhile, upstairs in the electronic medical record system, Dr. Irene Lim frowned at her computer screen. She'd been reviewing incoming patient data when she noticed an anomaly, vital signs for a Danielle Brooks showing patterns of distress, but no attending physician assigned to the case. In fact, the patient wasn't even listed in a room. Dr. Lim clicked through the file, her concern growing. Pregnant, 32 weeks, contractions, and a note about security detention? That didn't make sense. Pregnant women with contractions didn't get detained. They got monitored. She picked up her phone to call the ER when a notification popped up on her screen. Danielle Brooks's heart rate had spiked again. Wherever this woman was, she was in distress. Back in the holding room, Danielle felt another contraction begin. This one was the worst yet. She couldn't help the tears that slipped down her cheeks as the pain peaked and then slowly subsided. When she opened her eyes, Officer Maddox was standing in the doorway, watching her with an unreadable expression. Please, she said quietly. I think something's wrong with my baby. Dr. Whitlow says you're fine, he replied flatly. She hasn't even examined me, Danielle cried. How would she know? Look, lady. My name is Danielle Brooks, she interrupted, finding strength in her desperation. My husband is Gregory Brooks, chairman of the board of this hospital, and when he finds out what's happened here today, neither you nor Dr. Whitlow will have jobs tomorrow. Officer Maddox's smug expression faltered for the first time. You're lying. Check it, Danielle challenged. Call the administrative office and ask for Chairman Brooks. Tell them his wife is handcuffed in a basement holding cell while having contractions. See what happens. Before Officer Maddox could respond, the door pushed open wider, and Maya reappeared. Her eyes were wide. Her breath coming quick. I just made a call, she said, looking from Danielle to Officer Maddox. To Chairman Brooks's private line. Officer Maddox's face drained of color. He's on his way, Maya continued, her voice stronger now. And he knows everything. Maya Reyes ducked into the empty break room, her heart pounding against her ribs. What she was about to do could cost her job, her career, possibly everything she'd worked for. But the image of Danielle handcuffed and in pain wouldn't leave her mind. With trembling fingers, she pulled out the hospital directory from her pocket. She'd copied the private line number for Gregory Brooks from the staff contact list, breaking at least 3 privacy protocols in the process. Taking a deep breath, she dialed. The phone rang twice before a deep, measured voice answered. Brooks, speaking. Mr. Brooks? Maya's voice came out higher than she intended. This is Maya Reyes, a nurse at Westlake Memorial. Your wife. They arrested her. She's in the hospital basement. The silence that followed was so complete that Maya checked to see if the call had dropped. Then came his voice, unnervingly calm but with an undercurrent that sent chills down her spine. Don't let anyone touch her until I arrive. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone for a moment before slipping it back into her pocket. That voice wasn't just angry, it was controlled fury, the kind that moved mountains and toppled empires. She straightened her shoulders and headed back toward the security area, suddenly less afraid of losing her job. Gregory Brooks sat motionless in his downtown office, his expression unreadable as he processed what he'd just heard. After 10 seconds of perfect stillness, He reached for his desk phone and pressed 3 buttons in sequence. "Sarah, cancel my meetings for the day," he said to his assistant, "and get Alan Fisher and Patricia Wright on the line. Tell them it's an emergency board matter." He hung up and opened his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as he accessed the hospital's security protocols. As chairman, he had oversight privileges that most staff didn't even know existed. Within minutes, he was scanning camera feeds, searching for his wife. The phone rang again. "Alan and Patricia are on the conference line, sir." "Put them through," Gregory said, still watching the security feeds. When he heard the click indicating his fellow board members were connected, he spoke without preamble. "There's a situation at the hospital involving my wife. I'll need your backup when I arrive." "What kind of situation?" asked Alan, his voice concerned. "The kind that ends careers," Gregory replied, finally finding what he was looking for. AI. Grainy feed showing a small room where Danielle sat handcuffed on a bench. His jaw tightened. "I'll brief you when you get there. Meet me in the executive parking lot in 30 minutes. After ending the call, Gregory made 2 more, one to the hospital's legal counsel and another to Vanessa Morgan, the PR director he'd personally hired last year. Then he stood, straightening his navy blue suit jacket, and walked calmly to the elevator. In the basement holding room, Danielle was breathing through another contraction when the door opened. Officer Maddox entered, his earlier smugness replaced by nervous energy. "Is it true?" he demanded. "About your husband?" "Every word," Danielle replied, too exhausted to feel satisfaction at his discomfort. "Now please, remove these handcuffs. They're hurting me." Maddox hesitated, clearly torn between his alliance with Dr. Whitlow and the sudden realization that he might have handcuffed the chairman's wife. "Officer Maddox," came Maya's voice from the doorway. "I've just received orders from Dr. Whitlow that Ms. Brooks is to remain restrained until further notice." Danielle's heart sank, but then she caught Maya's subtle wink. "She specifically said to tell you that under no circumstances is Ms. Brooks to be released or given medical attention without her direct approval," Maya continued, her voice carrying, down the hallway where other staff might hear. Those were her exact words. Maddox nodded slowly, seeming relieved to have the decision taken out of his hands. "You heard her," he said to Danielle. "Dr. Whitlow's orders." As he turned to leave, Maya whispered, "He's coming. Just hold on a little longer." Upstairs in the ER, Dr. Karen Whitlow was reviewing charts when her phone buzzed. A text from Officer Maddox. "Patient claims husband Commerce Chairman Brooks." She snorted, typing back, "Nice try. Ignore her." But a seed of doubt had been planted. Whitlow pulled up the patient's intake form on her computer. Danielle Brooks, 32. Occupation, Community Advocacy Coordinator. Emergency contact, Gregory Brooks. It's a common name, she muttered to herself, but still reached for her phone and opened the hospital directory. Chairman Gregory Brooks. No photo. Just a contact number and email. Coincidence, she decided, closing the directory. Even if they were related, it wouldn't matter. She'd handled VIP complaints before. People were always threatening to call board members or claiming to know the CEO. Nothing ever came of it. Her pager beeped. A car accident victim was arriving in 5 minutes. Good. She could focus on real medicine instead of troublemaking patients. At 11:42 a.m., Gregory Brooks's black SUV pulled into the VIP parking space nearest the hospital's main entrance. 2 more vehicles arrived moments later, disgorging Alan Fisher, Patricia Wright, and a sharp-featured woman in a charcoal pantsuit, Vanessa Morgan from PR. "What's happening, Greg?" Alan asked as they approached the entrance. "My wife came in, with early contractions this morning," Gregory replied, his voice steady. "She was handcuffed, detained, and is currently being held in a basement security room without medical attention." Patricia gasped. "That's outrageous." "It's worse than outrageous," Gregory said, pushing through the revolving door. "It's criminal." The E group moved through the lobby with purpose, drawing curious glances. Gregory approached the front desk, where a young receptionist looked up with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Westlake Memorial. How can I help you today?" "I need to see my wife," Gregory said. "Danielle Brooks. She came in earlier with contractions." The receptionist typed on her keyboard. I'm not seeing anyone by that name checked in. Perhaps. She's still in the waiting area? There's about a 45-minute wait right now. Gregory smiled politely and reached into his jacket pocket, producing his hospital ID badge. I don't think you understand. I'm Gregory Brooks, chairman of this hospital's board. My pregnant wife was handcuffed and is being detained in your security. Hold right now. I want to see her immediately, along with her complete file and the security footage from this morning. The receptionist's smile froze, then crumbled. Her eyes darted to the others standing behind Gregory. I'll call someone. Right away, sir. As she fumbled for the phone, whispers rippled through the staff nearby. A nurse at the medication station gasped audibly. That's the chairman. Dr. Irene Lim was walking through the ER when she noticed the commotion. Recognizing Gregory from board meetings, she approached cautiously. Mr. Brooks, is everything all right? Gregory turned, recognizing her as well. Dr. Lim, perhaps you can help us. My wife, Danielle Brooks, came in with contractions this morning. She was apparently handcuffed and is being detained somewhere in the building. Dr. Lim's eyes widened. Danielle Brooks? I just flagged her file for review. Her vitals are showing distress patterns, but she's not assigned to any room or doctor. Where is she? Gregory's calm facade cracked slightly. According to the system, she's in security hold. Room B, but that can't be right. That's not a medical space. Dr. Lim was already turning toward the elevators. I'll take you there. As they moved through the hospital, staff members stopped and stared. The chairman rarely visited the clinical floors, and never with an entourage of board members and PR personnel. Something big was happening. In the basement, Officer Maddox was pacing outside the holding room when his radio crackled. Maddox, the chairman is headed your way. Do not, repeat, do not, engage. Wait for Dr. Whitlow. Too late. The elevator doors at the end of the hall slid open, and a group of people in business attire stepped out, led by a tall black man whose measured stride carried the weight of authority. Gregory spotted Maddox immediately. The uniform, the nervous posture, the radio clutched too tightly. Where is my wife? He asked, his voice deceptively soft. Maddox swallowed. Sir, I'm under orders to... That wasn't a request, Gregory cut him off. Open the door. Something in his tone made Maddox reach for his keys without further protest. The door swung open to reveal Danielle, still handcuffed on the bench, her face drawn with exhaustion and pain. Gregory, she whispered, relief washing over her features. In 2 strides, Gregory was kneeling before her. What have they done to you? He asked, gently touching her face. Sir, Maddox began. I can explain. Remove those handcuffs, Gregory ordered without looking away from his wife. Now. As Maddox fumbled with the keys, Gregory noticed the raw marks on Danielle's wrists. A muscle in his jaw twitched, the only outward sign of the rage building inside him. Get a wheelchair, he told Dr. Lim, who nodded and hurried away. To Danielle, he murmured, You're safe now. I'm going to take care of this. The baby. Danielle began. We'll get you checked right away, he assured her, helping her stand as Maddox finally removed the handcuffs. Dr. Lim returned with a wheelchair, and Gregory carefully helped Danielle into it. Take her to maternity, he instructed. I want a full evaluation immediately. As Dr. Lim wheeled Danielle toward the elevator, Gregory turned to face Maddox. Your name and badge number. Tyler Maddox, sir. Badge 4487. Gregory committed it to memory. Consider yourself suspended, effective immediately. Turn in your badge and leave the premises. But Dr. Whitlow said, Dr. Whitlow, Gregory interrupted coldly. We'll be joining you shortly. Where is she? Before Maddox could answer, the elevator doors opened again, and Dr. Karen Whitlow stepped out, her expression confident until she registered the scene before her. The chairman, 2 board members, the PR director, and a security officer who looked like he'd seen a ghost. What's going on here? She demanded, recovering quickly. Dr. Whitlow, Gregory said, his voice arctic. Just the person I wanted to see. Boardroom, now. "I'm in the middle of a shift," she protested. "We have critical patients." "And my wife was one of them," Gregory cut her off. Yet somehow she ended up handcuffed in a basement instead of receiving care. Boardroom, 5 minutes. He turned and walked back to the elevator, leaving Dr. Whitlow standing stunned in the hallway. 10 minutes later, Dr. Whitlow strode into the hospital boardroom, her white coat crisp, her expression carefully composed. She'd taken the time to check Danielle's file and prepare her defense. A difficult patient, protocol violations, standard security measures that may have been overzealous, but were technically within policy. Her confidence faltered when she saw Gregory sitting at the head of the massive oak table, with Alan Fisher and Patricia Wright flanking him. 3 members of the legal team sat to one side, laptops open. Vanessa Morgan from PR was taking notes nearby. This wasn't an informal meeting. This was a tribunal. "Dr. Whitlow," Gregory began without preamble, "you had my wife handcuffed and left to labor alone. Explain yourself." The directness of the accusation caught her off guard. "Mr. Brooks, there seems to be a misunderstanding. Your wife became disruptive in the ER waiting area." "I've reviewed the security footage," Gregory interrupted, sliding a tablet across the table. "The footage you tried to delete." Dr. Whitlow glanced down at the screen, which showed Danielle, calmly speaking to the receptionist, then to herself, then being confronted and having her doctor's note torn up. "Our IT department was able to recover it," Gregory continued. "Interesting how it contradicts your incident report." The color drained from Dr. Whitlow's face. She'd been so sure Tyler had wiped the footage. "Furthermore," Gregory continued, "Dr. Lim has confirmed that my wife's vitals showed clear signs of distress for over 2 hours while she was detained. Distress that you ignored despite being notified by the automated system. I never received any notification," Dr. Whitlow protested. Gregory tapped on his tablet and a series of alert acknowledgments appeared on the screen, each bearing her digital signature. "The system says otherwise." For the first time, Dr. Whitlow felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This wasn't going to be resolved with a simple apology or bureaucratic maneuvering. The chairman had evidence, witnesses, and the full weight of his position behind him. "Mr. Brooks," she said, changing tactics, "I deeply regret any miscommunication or staff error that led to this unfortunate situation. Hospital policy for disruptive individuals may have been applied too stringently in this case." "Stop," Gregory said, raising a hand. "This wasn't miscommunication or staff error. This was deliberate mistreatment based on racial bias, and we both know it." The accusation hung in the air like a thundercloud. "That's a serious allegation," Dr. Whitlow said stiffly. "Yes," Gregory agreed. "It is. One that will be thoroughly investigated, along with every other complaint of similar treatment that's been filed in this hospital over the past 5 years. Dr. Whitlow's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. "Complaints? What complaints?" Gregory's expression remained impassive. "That's what we're going to find out." Danielle lay in a private room on the maternity floor, an IV in her arm and monitors tracking her baby's heartbeat. The contractions had subsided after hydration and medication, but the doctors wanted to keep her overnight for observation. Maya sat beside her, having been reassigned as her dedicated nurse at Gregory's request. "I still can't believe you're the chairman's wife," Maya said, adjusting Danielle's pillows. "When you first told me, I thought you might be delirious from dehydration." Danielle smiled weakly. "Gregory prefers to keep a low profile. He didn't want people treating me differently because of who I'm married to." "Well, they're certainly treating you differently now," Maya observed, glancing at the luxury suite with its plush furnishings and panoramic windows. "Every administrator in the hospital has been by to apologize." "Except the ones who should," Danielle noted. "Dr. Whitlow and Officer Maddox?" Maya shook her head. "I doubt they'll be allowed anywhere near you." The door opened and Gregory entered, looking more tired than when he'd left 2 hours ago, but still impeccably dressed in his navy suit. "How are you feeling?" he asked, coming to Danielle's side and taking her hand. "Better," she said. "The baby's heartbeat is strong. They think the stress triggered false labor." Gregory nodded, relief evident in his eyes. He turned to Maya. Could you give us a moment, please? Of course, Maya said, stepping out and closing the door behind her. Once they were alone, Gregory's composed expression softened. I'm so sorry this happened to you. It's not your fault, Danielle said, squeezing his hand. I should have been there. I should have. Gregory, she interrupted gently. We both know this happens every day to people who don't have husbands on hospital boards. The difference is, we can do something about it. He studied her face, marveling at her strength. Even after everything she'd endured today, she was thinking about others. Yes, he agreed. We can. And we will. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I've formed an emergency panel. Alan and Patricia from the board, plus our legal team and ethics officer. We're going to investigate what happened to you thoroughly. Good, Danielle said. But I want you to go further. This isn't just about me. Gregory nodded, unsurprised by her request. It was one of the reasons he'd fallen in love with her unwavering commitment to justice that matched his own. I've already started, he assured her. We're pulling every complaint filed against Dr. Whitlow and Officer Maddox, as well as general grievances about discriminatory treatment. Downstairs, in the hospital administration wing, that process was already underway. A team of legal assistants was combing through digital and physical records, compiling a database of incidents. Mr. Brooks, called one of the assistants as Gregory, entered the conference room they'd commandeered. We found something interesting. Gregory approached the table where documents were spread out. What is it? Dr. Whitlow has had 17 formal complaints filed against her in the past 3 years, the young man explained. But only 2 are in the official HR database. And the others? Buried in individual patient files, marked as resolved without investigation. And they all follow a pattern. Patients of color claiming mistreatment, dismissal of symptoms, or unnecessary security involvement. Gregory's expression darkened. Keep digging. I want every case documented. As he turned to leave, Patricia Wright entered, carrying a tablet. Greg, you need to see this. Someone leaked a clip to social media. A black woman being dragged out of the ER in handcuffs. Gregory took the tablet, watching the grainy footage with a sinking feeling. It was Danielle, being led away by Officer Maddox. The video had already been viewed over 20,000 times. Do we know who leaked it? He asked. Patricia shook her head. Not yet, but Vanessa is preparing a statement. We need to get ahead of this. No, Gregory said, handing back the tablet. No statements yet. Not until we have the full picture. As they spoke, a young man in a rumpled suit approached the conference room, peering in curiously. A hospital security guard moved to intercept him. Sir, this area is restricted. It's all right, the man said, holding up a press badge. I'm Elias Voss from the Daily Chronicle. I'm here to speak with hospital administration about an incident that occurred this morning. No press. The guard insisted. Actually, Gregory called from the doorway. I'll speak with him. The security guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Elias Voss was in his early 30s, with keen eyes and the restless energy of someone always chasing the next story. He extended his hand to Gregory. Mr. Brooks? Elias Voss. I received an anonymous tip about a pregnant woman being mistreated in your ER today. Come in, Mr. Voss, Gregory said, leading him into an empty office nearby. Let's talk. While Gregory was meeting with the journalist, Dr. Irene Lim was reviewing Danielle's medical records in her office. Something bothered her about the timeline. According to the intake log, Danielle had been marked as processed at 9:47 a.m., but her first vitals weren't recorded until 11:23 a.m., nearly 2 hours later, and only after she'd been moved to the maternity floor. Dr. Lim pulled up the automated monitoring system and checked the alerts. Just as she suspected, Danielle's biometric wristband had been registering elevated heart rate and contractions since 10:15 a.m., but the alerts had been acknowledged and dismissed by Dr. Whitlow without action. There was a knock at her door, and she quickly minimized the screen. Come in. Maya Reyes entered, looking nervous. Dr. Lim, can I speak with you privately? Of course, Dr. Lim replied, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. What is it? It's about Mrs. Brooks, Maya said, lowering her voice. And Dr. Whitlow. Dr. Lim leaned forward. Go on. I overheard Dr. Whitlow and Officer Maddox discussing deleting security footage, Maya said in a rush. They were falsifying the report about what happened with Mrs. Brooks. Dr. Lim's expression remained neutral, but her mind was racing. That's a serious accusation, Nurse Reyes. I know, Maya said, wringing her hands. But it's true, and I'm willing to put it in a formal statement. Dr. Lim studied the young nurse, impressed by her courage. That won't be easy. Dr. Whitlow has influence here. So does the chairman, Maya pointed out, and the truth matters more than my job. After a moment's consideration, Dr. Lim nodded and reached for a form in her desk drawer. Then let's make it official. Meanwhile, Officer Tyler Maddox was clearing out his locker in the security office, anger simmering beneath his controlled movements. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Whitlow. My office, 5 minutes. When he arrived, she was pacing behind her desk, her normally perfect appearance showing signs of strain. This is a disaster, she hissed when he closed the door. The chairman is on the warpath. They're pulling records, interviewing staff. They even have that reporter from the Chronicle sniffing around.
What do they have? Maddox asked. Everything, Whitlow snapped. They recovered the footage we deleted. They have the alert logs showing I ignored her vitals. That nurse trainee is talking. It's all falling apart. Maddox swore under his breath.
So what do we do? Dr. Whitlow stopped pacing and faced him. We control the narrative. I've already submitted a statement explaining that this was a tragic miscommunication and staff error. You were following protocols as trained. I was dealing with multiple critical patients and delegated her case. It was unfortunate, but not malicious. Will that work? It has before, she said grimly. What Dr. Whitlow didn't know was that Gregory Brooks was already 2 steps ahead of her. In a private meeting room, he sat across from Chief Raymond Shaw, the hospital's CEO. This could destroy us, Greg, Shaw was saying, his normally ruddy face pale with concern. A PR nightmare. Lawsuits. Federal investigations into our practices. Yes, Gregory agreed calmly. It could, unless we take decisive action now. What are you suggesting? Full transparency. An external review of our policies. Immediate administrative leave for Whitlow and Maddox pending investigation. And a complete audit of every complaint filed in the past 5 years. Shaw balked. That's extreme. We should handle this internally quietly. Raymond, Gregory interrupted. This isn't just about today. This is about a pattern of behavior that's been allowed to continue under your leadership. Either you support this investigation, or the board will need to reconsider your position as well. The threat hung in the air between them. You wouldn't, Shaw said, but his voice lacked conviction. I would, Gregory confirmed. This isn't just about my wife, though. That would be reason enough. This is about every patient who walks through our doors deserving equal treatment and dignity. Shaw stared at him for a long moment before nodding reluctantly. Fine, but I want oversight of the investigation. No, Gregory said firmly. You'll be included in the process, but the investigation will be independent. Back in Danielle's room, she was finally resting comfortably when her phone buzzed with a news alert. She opened it to find a breaking story. Pregnant woman allegedly. Handcuffed, detained at Westlake Memorial. Hospital launches investigation. The article quoted an anonymous hospital source describing a pattern of discriminatory treatment toward patients of color. There was no mention of her name or Gregory's position, yet she was still reading when Gregory returned. Have you seen this? She asked, holding up her phone. He nodded. Elias Voss is a good reporter. He agreed to keep your name out of it for now, but the story needed to be told. What happens next? Danielle asked. Gregory sat on the edge of her bed, taking her hand. We find the truth. All of it. You think there's more? I know there is, Gregory said quietly. I spoke with Dr. Lim. She's been documenting disparities in patient care for years, but couldn't get anyone to listen. And she's not the only one. Danielle squeezed his hand. Then we make them listen. As the sky darkened outside Danielle's hospital window, Gregory stood looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a message from the IT department. Found the server room where disciplinary records are stored offline. Need access authorization. He replied immediately, "Granted, pull everything." Whatever they found, Gregory knew their lives would never be the same. What had begun as a personal injustice was opening the door to something much larger. A systemic failure that had hurt countless patients before Danielle. He turned back to his sleeping wife, her hand protectively curved over her belly. "This goes far deeper," he whispered, not just to her but to himself, "and we're going to fix it. All of it." Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Danielle's hospital room, casting warm patterns across the bed. She was awake, feeling stronger after a night of proper care and rest. Gregory sat in the chair beside her, his laptop open, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he'd barely slept. "You should go home and rest," Danielle said softly. Gregory looked up and managed a tired smile. "I'm not leaving you here alone." "I'm hardly alone," she replied, gesturing to the 2 private nurses stationed outside her door, Gregory's non-negotiable condition for her continued stay at the hospital. "And Maya will be back for her shift soon." Before Gregory could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. "I need to take this. I'll be right back." He stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. Chief Raymond Shaw was calling. "Raymond," Gregory answered, his voice deliberately neutral. "We need to talk before this goes any further," Shaw said without preamble. "My office, 30 minutes. I'm with my wife." "This can't wait, Greg." Shaw's voice had an edge of desperation. "Things are happening that you don't understand." "Enlighten me." Shaw hesitated. "Not over the phone. Just tread carefully. Don't go looking for fires in a house made of gas." The line went dead. Gregory stared at his phone, the warning settling like a weight in his chest. When he returned to Danielle's room, she immediately noticed his changed demeanor. "What is it?" she asked. "Shaw," Gregory replied, gathering his jacket. "He wants to meet." "You're going? I need to hear what he has to say." Gregory leaned down to kiss her forehead. "I'll be back soon. Lock the door behind me." 20 minutes later, Gregory entered the executive wing of the hospital, nodding to staff who scrambled to appear busy as he passed. Shaw's assistant jumped to her feet when she saw him. "Mr. Brooks, Chief Shaw is expecting you." She hurried to open the door to the inner office, where Raymond Shaw stood gazing out the floor-to-ceiling windows. At 60, Shaw still maintained the robust physique of his college football days, though his once red hair had faded to gray. "Close the door," Shaw said without turning around. Gregory complied, then took a seat across from Shaw's desk without being invited. "You wanted to talk." Shaw finally turned, his face grave. "This investigation you're pushing, it needs to stop. That's not happening." "You don't understand the implications," Shaw insisted, lowering his voice despite the closed door. "There are people involved who won't appreciate their names being dragged through the mud." "People like Dr. Whitlow?" Gregory asked mildly. "People like State Senator William Barnes," Shaw countered. "People like Health Commissioner James Pruitt. People who approve our funding and sign off on our accreditation." Gregory's expression remained unchanged. "Are you suggesting these officials are somehow involved in covering up discriminatory practices at this hospital?" "I'm suggesting," Shaw said carefully, "that certain arrangements exist to ensure the hospital runs smoothly. Dr. Whitlow has connections. She's been useful in managing certain regulatory challenges. So she's protected because she helps cover up violations during inspections," Gregory translated flatly. Shaw didn't deny it. "The system works, Greg. We've kept this hospital operating in the black for 8 straight years. Do you know how rare that is? At what cost, Raymond?" Gregory stood, his patience evaporating. "My wife was handcuffed and left to suffer because she's black. How many others have been mistreated to maintain your precious bottom line?" "That was unfortunate," Shaw admitted. "An aberration." "No," Gregory said firmly. "It was the inevitable result of the culture you've fostered here, and it ends now." Back in his temporary office near Danielle's room, Gregory made a decision. Opening his laptop, he selected one video file from the dozens his team had recovered, footage showing a pregnant black woman from 2 years ago being repeatedly dismissed by staff until she collapsed in the waiting room. The baby didn't survive. The woman's face was blurred, her identity protected, but her desperation was clear. Gregory's finger hovered over the send button for only a moment before he forwarded the clip anonymously to Elias Voss with a simple message. This wasn't an isolated incident. By noon, the video had been posted on the Chronicle's website under the headline, "Exclusive, Pattern of Neglect at Westlake Memorial Hospital." By 2 o'clock, local TV stations were running the story. By 4, protesters were gathering outside the hospital entrance carrying signs that read, "Black Mothers Matter and Justice for Westlake Victims." Danielle watched the coverage on the small TV in her room, tears streaming down her face. "That poor woman," she whispered. "That could have been me." Maya, who had arrived for her shift, squeezed Danielle's hand. But it wasn't. And now people will finally listen. Gregory returned to find Danielle wiping her eyes. "You leaked the video," she said. It wasn't a question. "I did," he confirmed. "The truth needs to be heard." "Good," Danielle said, her voice strengthening. "This isn't just about me, Gregory. It never was." "I know," he replied, taking her hand. "That's why I love you." Their moment was interrupted by Maya rushing into the room, her face flushed. "Doctor, Whitlow is on her way up here. She looks furious." Gregory straightened. "Stay with Danielle. Don't let Whitlow in under any circumstances." He stepped into the hallway just as Dr. Karen Whitlow emerged from the elevator, her white coat billowing, behind her like a battle flag. When she spotted Gregory, she marched straight toward him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her voice low but intense. "That video was internal hospital property." "Funny," Gregory replied coolly. "I thought it was evidence." "You're destroying this hospital," Whitlow hissed. "Years of reputation gone because of your vendetta." "This isn't a vendetta, Dr. Whitlow. It's accountability. Something you've managed to avoid for far too long." Whitlow's eyes narrowed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually, I do," Gregory countered. "I know about your arrangement with Shaw. I know you've been helping cover up health violations in exchange for protection. And I know about the 17 formal complaints against you that mysteriously disappeared." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Whitlow's face. Before she could respond, the elevator doors opened again, and Officer Tyler Maddox stepped out. He froze when he saw Gregory and Whitlow in the hallway. "Perfect timing, Officer Maddox," Gregory said. "I was just explaining to Dr. Whitlow that both of you are now on administrative leave pending investigation." "You can't do that," Maddox protested. "It's already done," Gregory replied. "Security will escort you both from the building." As if, on cue, 2 security officers emerged from the stairwell. Whitlow looked from them to Gregory, her face flushed with anger. "This isn't over," she warned before turning sharply and heading for the elevator, Maddox following reluctantly behind. Inside Danielle's room, Maya had been recording the entire exchange on her phone. When Gregory returned, she showed him the video. "Insurance," she explained, "in case they try to spin what happened." Gregory nodded appreciatively. "Smart thinking." "I learned from the best," Maya replied, glancing at Danielle. "Mrs. Brooks has been telling me about her advocacy work." Later that evening, Dr. Irene Lim arrived at Danielle's room carrying a thick file folder. "Mr. Brooks," she said, acknowledging Gregory before turning to Danielle. "Mrs. Brooks, how are you feeling?" "Much better," Danielle replied. "Thank you for checking on me." "Actually," Dr. Lim said, glancing at the door to ensure it was closed, "I'm here about something else." She placed the folder on the bedside table. "This is a list of every patient of color who filed a formal grievance against this hospital in the last 7 years. Many of these complaints mysteriously disappeared from our official records." Gregory picked up the folder, flipping through the pages with growing concern. How did you compile this? I've been keeping my own records, Dr. Lim admitted. After the third time I reported discriminatory treatment and nothing happened, I realized something was wrong with the system, so I started documenting everything myself. Gregory looked at her with newfound respect. This is incredibly valuable, Dr. Lim. Thank you. There's more, she continued. One of the IT technicians told me about a server room on the 5th floor, in the old records section. It's where they store disciplinary files that never make it to HR, the ones they want to keep off the main system. Gregory and Danielle exchanged glances. How do we access it? Gregory asked. You'll need the master key, Dr. Lim replied. Only Shaw and the head of IT have it. That night, after Danielle had fallen asleep, Gregory met with the hospital's head of cybersecurity, a woman he'd personally hired last year despite Shaw's objections. Together they used Gregory's executive access to enter the restricted server room. This is definitely irregular, the technician said as she connected to the isolated server. They've been keeping a completely separate database. Can you access the files? Gregory asked. Already in, she replied, fingers flying across the keyboard. And, oh my God. Gregory leaned over her shoulder, watching as she pulled up video file after video file, each documenting an incident similar to Danielle's. Patients of color being dismissed, restrained, or removed from the hospital without proper care. Download everything, he instructed grimly. Back in his temporary office, Gregory spent hours reviewing the footage. One video in particular stopped him cold. A black woman in labor, begging for help, being restrained on a gurney. Her screams gradually weakened until she went silent. The timestamp showed it was from 3 years ago. Gregory stared at the frozen image on his screen, a cold fury building inside him. This wasn't negligence or casual bias. This was systematic, deliberate, criminal. This ends now, he whispered, to the empty room. The next morning, Gregory arrived at the hospital to find Alan Fisher waiting for him in the lobby, his expression grim. We have a problem, Alan said without preamble. The board received this an hour ago. He handed Gregory a document. It was a motion for Gregory's immediate removal as chairman, citing conflict of interest and misuse of hospital resources for personal vendettas. 7 signatures, Gregory noted, scanning the page. All Shaw's allies. He moved fast, Alan confirmed. Emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Gregory folded the document and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Let him try. When he reached Danielle's room, he found her sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed in clothes Maya had brought from home. What's going on? He asked. They're moving me, Danielle explained, her voice tight with anger. Apparently there's been a billing code error, and I'm being transferred to a standard room. Gregory's phone rang before he could respond. It was the hospital's billing department. Mr. Brooks, came a nervous voice. I'm calling about your wife's room assignment. There seems to be some confusion. No confusion, Gregory cut in. My wife stays exactly where she is. Override whatever code was entered and fix it immediately. I can't, sir, the woman replied, sounding genuinely distressed. The order came directly from Chief Shaw. He said the VIP suite needs to be available for a board member's relative arriving this afternoon. Just then, a new nurse Gregory didn't recognize entered the room, pushing a wheelchair. Mrs. Brooks, I'm here to transport you to the 3rd floor. No, you're not, came Maya's voice from the doorway. She stepped into the room, still wearing her scrubs despite being off duty. Mrs. Brooks isn't going anywhere. The new nurse frowned. You don't work this floor anymore, Reyes. You were reassigned. Reassigned? Gregory asked sharply. More like fired, Maya corrected. Dr. Whitlow called my supervisor this morning, said I was interfering with patient care protocols. Gregory's expression darkened. That's not happening. You're staying as my wife's primary nurse, by my direct order as chairman. You don't have that authority anymore, came a new voice. Chief Shaw stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 board members Gregory recognized as his strongest supporters. The executive committee has temporarily suspended your chairmanship pending tomorrow's vote. The room fell silent. Gregory stared at Shaw, years of carefully maintained professional courtesy evaporating in an instant. "You won't win this, Raymond," he said quietly. "I already have," Shaw replied, his confidence palpable. "Your personal crusade ends now. Mrs. Brooks will be transferred to a standard room as her insurance coverage dictates, and Nurse Reyes has been terminated for violating hospital protocols." "This is retaliation," Danielle spoke up, her voice clear and strong despite her exhaustion. "And it's illegal." Shaw barely glanced at her. "Your opinion has been noted, Mrs. Brooks. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a hospital to run." After they left, Gregory turned to Maya. "I'm sorry about your job." Maya shrugged, though her eyes betrayed her worry. "It was worth it. But what do we do now?" "We fight back," Gregory said, pulling out his phone. "But first, we need to move Danielle somewhere safe." That afternoon, Gregory filed a formal complaint with the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, citing civil rights violations and patient endangerment. He also issued a cease and desist letter to Shaw and Whitlow through his personal attorney, demanding they stop all retaliatory actions. Their response came swiftly, a counter cease and desist, claiming Gregory was interfering with hospital operations and making defamatory statements that could damage the institution's reputation. Danielle, now settled in a private room at a different hospital across town, watched Gregory pace as he fielded calls from his legal team. "They're playing hardball," she observed when he finally ended the last call. "So are we," Gregory replied, showing her his phone. Elias Voss had published another damning article, this one detailing the hospital's attempt to silence whistleblowers and cover up evidence of discrimination. As they talked, breaking news flashed across the TV screen. "Fire at Westlake Memorial Hospital. Records room damaged." Gregory's phone immediately lit up with texts from Dr. Lim. "Fifth floor server room. Burning. Electrical fire. Convenient timing." "They're destroying evidence," Danielle realized, her eyes wide. Gregory nodded grimly. "But they're too late. We already have copies of everything." What they didn't know was that at that very moment, a team of IT specialists hired by Shaw was working to infiltrate Gregory's secure server. By evening, they'd succeeded in accessing his private email account. The next morning, Gregory woke to find his inbox flooded with messages from board members, colleagues, and even journalists. Someone had leaked private emails between him and Danielle, conversations where they'd discussed their frustrations with the healthcare system, including some where Danielle had expressed strong opinions about Westlake Memorial before she ever set foot there. "They're trying to make you look biased," his PR advisor explained over the phone, "painting Danielle as someone with a grudge against the hospital from the beginning." "That's absurd," Gregory said. "Those emails are from months ago, when we were discussing healthcare disparities in general." "Context doesn't matter in a PR. War," came the grim reply. "They're winning the narrative." Maya arrived at Danielle's new hospital room looking exhausted, but determined. "I gave an interview," she announced without preamble, "to Elias Voss. On the record, full name, everything." "Maya," Danielle said softly, "your career is worth nothing if I can't practice ethical medicine," Maya finished for her. "Besides, I'm not the only one. 3 other nurses came forward after I did. The story runs tomorrow." Gregory's phone rang. Alan Fisher again. "Greg, you need to get back to Westlake immediately. Shaw's called an emergency staff meeting. He's going to publicly ask for your resignation." "I'm on my way," Gregory said, already reaching for his jacket. "I'm coming too," Danielle insisted, struggling to sit up. "Absolutely not," Gregory and Maya said in unison. "This is my fight too," Danielle argued. "I need to be there." Before they could stop her, she swung her legs over the side of the bed. Immediately, her face contorted in pain as a contraction gripped her. "Danielle!" Gregory rushed to her side. "It's too early," she gasped when the pain subsided. "The baby's not due for weeks." Maya checked the monitors. "Her blood pressure is spiking. We need a doctor in here now." Within minutes, Danielle was surrounded by medical staff. The diagnosis came quickly. Stress-induced preeclampsia, She needed an emergency C-section. "We're transferring her to Westlake," the doctor announced. "They have the best NICU in the city." "No," Gregory protested. "After what happened, it's the closest level 4 NICU." The doctor cut him off. "Your baby will need specialized care. We don't have time to argue." As Danielle was wheeled toward the ambulance, she clutched Gregory's hand. "Don't let Whitlow near me," she whispered. "Promise. Me. I promise," Gregory said, his voice breaking slightly. "I'll be right beside you the whole time." The ambulance screamed through the city streets, Danielle's condition deteriorating by the minute. When they arrived at Westlake, a team was waiting. In the emergency bay, and standing at the front was Dr. Karen Whitlow. "I'm handling this case," Whitlow announced as they wheeled Danielle inside. "Like hell you are," Gregory growled, physically stepping between Whitlow and the gurney. "I'm the senior obstetric surgeon on call," Whitlow insisted. "Step aside." "Find another surgeon," Gregory demanded. "There isn't time," Whitlow snapped. "Your wife needs immediate surgery and I'm it," Danielle cried out as another contraction. "Hit. Please," she begged. "Anyone but her." Hospital security approached, drawn by the commotion. One of them reached for Gregory's arm. "Sir, you need to let the doctors work." Gregory shook him off, positioning himself as a human barrier between Whitlow and Danielle. "She is not touching my wife." Two security guards grabbed Gregory, wrestling him away from the gurney. "You're interfering with medical care, sir. She'll kill my baby," Gregory shouted as they dragged him back. "She's already killed one." The corridor fell silent, all eyes on Gregory. In the moment of distraction, a young medical resident pulled out her phone and began streaming the confrontation live on social media. "Let him go," came a firm voice. Dr. Irene Lim stepped forward. "I'm taking over this case." "You're not qualified," Whitlow began. "I've performed more emergency C-sections than you have, Dr. Whitlow," Lim interrupted coldly. "And unlike you, I haven't had my privileges questioned by the medical board. Now step aside." The security guards released Gregory, uncertain what to do. The resident continued filming as Dr. Lim took control of Danielle's care, directing the EI team to move her immediately to an operating room. As they rushed Danielle away, Gregory caught a glimpse of her terrified face. He tried to follow, but a nurse stopped him. "You need to change into scrubs first, Mr. Brooks. Then you can join her." Outside the hospital, the video of Gregory being tackled by security was already going viral. "Hospital chairman assaulted while protecting pregnant wife," read the caption. Within minutes, the crowd of protesters outside had doubled in size, their chants growing louder. "Justice for Danielle! Justice for Danielle!" Inside, Gregory changed into scrubs with shaking hands, praying he hadn't just witnessed the last moments with his wife and unborn child. The system had struck back hard, but they had underestimated just how far he would go to protect his family. The operating room lights blazed overhead as Dr. Irene Lim worked with precise, focused movements. Danielle lay unconscious on the table, her vitals stabilized but still concerning. Gregory sat near her head, a surgical mask covering his face, his eyes never leaving his wife's peaceful expression. "BP's holding steady," a nurse called out. "Good," Dr. Lim replied. "Let's get this baby out safely." Minutes later, a tiny cry filled the room. Dr. Lim lifted the newborn girl, small but clearly fighting. "She's breathing on her own," she announced. "But she'll need NICU care." As the pediatric team whisked the baby away for assessment, Dr. Lim finished tending to Danielle. "She'll be fine," she assured Gregory quietly. "Both of them will." Hours later, Danielle lay in recovery, still unconscious but stable. Their daughter rested in an incubator in the NICU 1 floor below. 4 pounds, 3 ounces of determination. Gregory moved between their rooms, torn between his wife and child, refusing to leave either alone for long. Outside the hospital, the crowd had grown. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes raised like sentinels. The viral video of Gregory being tackled while trying to protect Danielle had reached 3 million views and climbing. Signs in the crowd now bore Danielle's name alongside calls for justice. In his temporary office, Gregory sat beside Danielle's bed, his laptop open as he monitored developments. The hospital board had postponed their emergency meeting following Danielle's surgery. Even Shaw couldn't justify proceeding while the chairman's wife fought for her life. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Alan Fisher, his expression grave, but determined. "How are they?" Alan asked. "Stable," Gregory replied. "The baby's in NICU, but her vitals are strong. Danielle hasn't woken up yet." Alan nodded, taking a seat across from him. "I've been making calls. 9 board members are ready to back you. Shaw only has 6 left." Gregory looked up, surprised. "What changed?" "That video," Alan said simply. "And this." He placed a tablet on the bed, showing the Chronicle's website. The headline read, "Exclusive. Hospital staff speak out about racist practices." Maya's interview had run, along with testimonials from 3 other nurses and a resident. They detailed a pattern of discrimination that extended far beyond Danielle's case. Patients of color receiving less pain medication, waiting longer for care, having their symptoms dismissed more frequently. "It's getting harder for Shaw to claim this is just about your wife," Alan observed. Gregory nodded grimly. "Good." As they spoke, Danielle's eyelids fluttered. Gregory was instantly at her side, taking her hand. "Danielle, can you hear me?" Slowly, her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then settling on his face. "Gregory," she whispered. "The baby?" "She's beautiful," he assured her, tears threatening. "Small but strong, just like her mother." Danielle managed a weak smile before sleep claimed her again. The next morning, a national news program led with the Westlake story. The anchor's voice was appropriately somber. Disturbing allegations of systemic racism at prestigious Westlake Memorial Hospital have sparked protests and a federal investigation. The controversy erupted after Danielle Brooks, a pregnant black woman, was allegedly handcuffed and detained while seeking emergency care. In the administrative wing, Chief Raymond Shaw watched the broadcast with mounting dread. His phone hadn't stopped ringing. Board members, donors, politicians all demanding explanations. Senator Barnes had already distanced himself publicly, claiming no knowledge of any improper arrangements at the hospital. A knock at his door preceded the entrance of the hospital's legal counsel, her expression grim. "The Department of Health and Human Services just served us with formal notice of investigation. They're sending a team tomorrow." Shaw loosened his tie, feeling the walls closing in. "What are our options?" "Limited," she replied bluntly. "The evidence is overwhelming, especially with the recovered server files. My recommendation is to get ahead of this. Suspend Whitlow and Maddox permanently, issue a formal apology, and announce a complete overhaul of hospital policies." "That's surrender," Shaw protested. "That's survival," she corrected. "The alternative is criminal charges for obstruction and civil rights violations." Before Shaw could respond, his assistant burst in without knocking. "Sir, Officer Maddox was just arrested in the parking garage." "What?" Shaw stood abruptly. "By whom?" "Internal Affairs," the assistant explained breathlessly. "Something about evidence tampering and unlawful detainment. They're taking him out the back entrance now." Shaw sank back into his chair, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. The carefully constructed system of protection and privilege he'd built over decades was collapsing like a house of cards. Meanwhile, Maya Reyes sat in a downtown studio, the lights hot on her face as she gave her first television interview. The reporter leaned forward intently. "What made you decide to speak out, Ms. Reyes? You've effectively ended your career at Westlake." Maya didn't hesitate. "There are more important things than careers. People's lives were at stake. Mrs. Brooks could have lost her baby. Others have lost much more. Were you surprised by the hospital's response?" "No," Maya said frankly. "That's how systems protect themselves. They silence whistleblowers. They destroy evidence. They attack victims' credibility. I expected retaliation." "And yet you spoke. Up anyway." Maya nodded. "Someone had to." In the NICU, Gregory stood beside his daughter's incubator, marveling at her tiny features. Danielle's nose, his chin, a perfect blend of them both. A nurse approached quietly. "She's doing very well, Mr. Brooks. Her oxygen levels are excellent. When can my wife see her?" "We can arrange that soon," the nurse promised. "Mrs. Brooks is recovering nicely." Gregory nodded his thanks, then turned, as his phone buzzed with a message from Patricia Wright. "Board reconvening at noon. We have the votes." 2 hours later, Gregory entered the hospital boardroom for the first time since Danielle's admission. The long table was filled with board members, their expressions ranging from supportive to hostile. Chief Shaw sat at the far end, his usual confident posture notably absent. "Gregory," Patricia greeted him, rising from her seat. "How are Danielle and the baby?" "Recovering," he replied simply, taking his place at the head of the table. "Shall we begin?" Alan Fisher cleared his throat. "We've called this emergency session to address the crisis facing our institution. Given recent events and the evidence that has come to light, we need to take immediate action." Shaw leaned forward. "Before we proceed, I'd like to present our plan for addressing these concerns. We're prepared to launch a comprehensive review." "Too late, Raymond," Gregory interrupted quietly. "You had years to address these issues. You chose to bury them instead." Patricia nodded. "The motion before the board is to terminate Chief Executive Officer Raymond Shaw and Dr. Karen Whitlow effective immediately for gross negligence and ethical violations." Shaw's face flushed. "This is a witch hunt. You can't possibly—" "We can," Alan cut in, "and we have the evidence to support it." He gestured to the stack of files in front of him, Dr. Irene Lim's dossier of hidden medical records, now formally submitted to the board. "Would anyone like to review Dr. Lim's findings before we vote?" Patricia asked, looking around the table. The room fell silent as the 12-page document was passed around. Page after page detailed cases of discriminatory treatment, patients of color who received substandard care, whose concerns were dismissed, whose health outcomes suffered as a result. The statistics were damning, the individual stories heartbreaking. When the last board member finished reading, Gregory called for the vote. "All in favor of terminating Shaw and Whitlow with cause?" Hands rose around the table, 9 out of 15. A clear majority. "Motion carries," Gregory announced. "Security will escort Mr. Shaw from the building immediately. Dr. Whitlow's credentials are hereby revoked." Shaw stood, his face a mask of controlled rage. "You'll regret this, Brooks. This hospital won't survive the scandal. This hospital won't survive without addressing the rot at its core," Gregory countered. "We're choosing integrity over expediency. It's long overdue." As security arrived to escort Shaw out, Gregory remained seated, feeling not triumph, but a weary determination. This was just the beginning. Later that afternoon, Dr. Karen Whitlow exited the hospital for the last time, head held high despite the circumstances. Hospital security flanked her, keeping the gathering of reporters and protesters at bay. Cameras flashed as she walked to her car, questions being shouted from all directions. "Dr. Whitlow, what do you say to allegations of racial bias in your treatment decisions? Will you fight your termination? Do you have any comment on the federal investigation?" She ignored them all until she reached her car. Then, turning to face the cameras, she finally spoke. "I gave my life to this place," she shouted, her composure cracking. 20 years of service, and this is how they repay me?" From the hospital entrance, Gregory watched silently. "It was never yours to begin with," he said, too quietly for her to hear across the distance. Upstairs, Danielle was finally strong enough to be wheeled to the NICU. Gregory walked beside her, holding her hand as a nurse pushed her wheelchair. "Are you ready to meet our daughter?" he asked softly. Danielle nodded, tears already forming. More than ready. In the hushed environment of the NICU, Danielle finally held her tiny daughter, marveling at each perfect finger and toe. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "So strong to come into the world under such circumstances." "She gets that from you," Gregory said, his voice thick with emotion. Danielle looked up at him, her eyes clear and determined despite her exhaustion. "What should we name her?" Gregory hadn't expected the question so soon. I thought we were still deciding between Sophia and Madison. Danielle shook her head slightly. After everything that's happened, I want her name to mean something more. She gazed down at the tiny face nestled against her chest. Justice. Her name is Justice. Gregory's eyes welled with tears as he nodded. Justice Brooks. Perfect. 2 days later, Danielle was strong enough to sit up and receive visitors. Maya came first, bringing flowers and tears of joy at seeing mother and baby doing well. Dr. Lim followed, checking Danielle's incision with gentle, competent hands. The board has asked me to oversee the transition while we search for a new CEO, Dr. Lim informed them. I've accepted temporarily. You'd be excellent in the role permanently, Gregory suggested. Dr. Lim smiled but shook her head. My place is with patients, but I'll help shape what comes next. As the day progressed, more visitors arrived. Board members, staff who supported the changes, even Elias Voss seeking an exclusive interview. To each, Gregory and Danielle shared the same message. This wasn't just for us. This was for every voice they tried to silence. In the evening, as Danielle rested with baby Justice in her arms, Gregory stood at the window, watching the hospital's illuminated sign. Soon, it would come down. A new name, a new era, a new commitment to equal care for all would take its place. 6 months later, a crowd gathered outside the renovated entrance of what had once been Westlake Memorial Hospital. A new sign gleamed in the morning sunlight. Eleanor Griggs Memorial Hospital. Gregory stood at the podium, Danielle beside him holding Justice, now a chubby, thriving 6-month-old. Behind them, Maya Reyes and Dr. Irene Lim waited alongside, other staff and board members. Today, we honor a woman most of you never knew, Gregory began, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. 10 years ago, Eleanor Griggs came to this hospital seeking care. She was turned away, her symptoms dismissed. She died in the parking lot of heart failure, a treatable condition if she'd been properly examined. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Gregory continued. Eleanor was a nurse herself. She spent 30 years caring for others, only to be denied care when she needed it most. Her story was buried, her family silenced with a settlement that required their silence. Today we break that silence. Today we acknowledge the wrongs of the past as we commit to a better future. He gestured to Danielle, who stepped forward with Justice. My wife and daughter nearly suffered the same fate. They are here today because brave individuals like Maya Reyes and Dr. Irene Lim refused to be complicit in a system that valued some lives less than others. Their courage exposed injustices that had festered far too long. The crowd applauded as Maya and Dr. Lim joined them. At the podium. The Eleanor Griggs Memorial Hospital is more than just a new name, Gregory continued. It represents a complete transformation in how we deliver care. We've restructured our board to include community representatives. We've implemented new training protocols and accountability measures. We've established an independent oversight committee with real power to investigate complaints. Danielle stepped to the microphone, Justice gurgling happily in her arms. Most importantly, we've created the Eleanor Griggs Scholarship Fund for Black and Brown medical students from underrepresented communities. The next generation of healthcare providers should reflect the diversity of the patients they serve. The changes hadn't come easily. The hospital had weathered months of negative publicity, the departure of several prominent physicians who resisted, the new policies, and intense scrutiny from regulatory agencies. But with each passing week, the culture had begun to shift. New leadership, new values, new commitments to equity and justice. After the ceremony, Maya found herself standing in her new office, still not quite believing the nameplate on the door. Maya Reyes, Director of Patient Advocacy. How does it feel? Danielle asked from the doorway, baby Justice on her hip. Maya turned, tears in her eyes. Overwhelming. 6 months ago, I was a nurse trainee afraid to speak up. Now you're exactly where you should be, Danielle finished, for her. You're going to transform this place, Maya. Across the hospital, Dr. Irene Lim was meeting with her new team in the ethics department. As the newly appointed head of internal ethics, she was responsible for monitoring racial disparities in care and addressing them before they became systemic. "Our first priority is data collection," she explained to her staff. "We need to track wait times, pain medication administration, diagnostic testing, all broken down by race, gender, and socioeconomic status. We can't improve what we don't measure." Meanwhile, in his downtown office, Elias Voss put the finishing touches on his series about Westlake Hospital. The articles had exposed not just the treatment of Danielle Brooks, but the broader patterns of discrimination throughout the healthcare system. His work had prompted investigations at 3 other hospitals and a statewide review of emergency room protocols. Next week, he'd receive the National Journalism Award for investigative reporting. His acceptance speech was already written, ending with the words, "This award belongs to those who were brave enough to risk everything to speak." In a courtroom across town, Officer Tyler Maddox stood as the judge entered. His lawyer had negotiated a plea deal, guilty to evidence tampering and unlawful detainment in exchange for testimony against former Chief Shaw, who faced more serious charges of obstruction of justice and civil rights violations. "Mr. Maddox," the judge began, "before I accept your plea, I understand you wish to make a statement to the victims of your actions." Maddox nodded, turning to where Danielle and Gregory sat in the front row. "Mrs. Brooks," he began, his voice carried live on local television, "there is no excuse for how I treated you that day. I abused my authority and caused harm to you and your unborn child. I am deeply sorry." Danielle's face remained impassive, but she gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. The apology couldn't erase what happened, but it was part of the accountability she had fought for. 3 weeks later, as autumn leaves swirled around the hospital grounds, Danielle stood at a podium of her own, reading from the manuscript of her newly completed memoir, In Labor Twice. "There are 2 kinds of labor in this world," she read to the assembled crowd. "The physical pain of bringing new life into the world, and the endless work of building a world worthy of that life. Both require courage. Both demand perseverance. Both transform us in ways we never imagined." The book had already garnered attention from major publishers, with a bidding war resulting in a 7-figure advance. Danielle had pledged half the proceeds to the scholarship fund, and the other half to expanding her community advocacy work. As evening fell, Danielle and Gregory stood with baby Justice outside the hospital, joining hundreds of others for a candlelight vigil honoring past victims of discriminatory healthcare. The gentle flames illuminated faces of all colors, united in remembrance and resolve. "Do you think we've made a difference?" Danielle asked softly, watching the candles flicker in the darkness. Gregory looked at the renamed hospital, at the diverse group of medical students receiving their scholarship certificates, at Maya directing a new patient advocacy initiative, at Dr. Lim implementing ethical oversight protocols. "Yes," he said simply, "this is just the beginning. But yes." A young woman approached them hesitantly, a baby in her arms about the same age as Justice. "Mrs. Brooks, I just wanted to thank you. I came here last month when my son was sick. They treated me with respect, listened to my concerns. Dr. Lim said the new protocols are because of what happened to you." Danielle smiled, reaching out to touch the healthy baby's cheek. "Not just because of me, because of everyone who spoke up, everyone who refused to accept things as they were." As the woman moved away, Gregory slipped his arm around Danielle's waist. "Ready to go home?" She nodded, cradling Justice close as they walked toward the parking lot. Behind them, the hospital's new sign glowed in the twilight. Not just a building, but a promise. Not just a medical facility, but a beacon of change. They had entered as a couple and were leaving as a family. They had come seeking care and had transformed an institution. What had begun as one woman's nightmare had awakened a movement for justice that would continue long after the cameras stopped rolling and the headlines faded. Justice Brooks, nestled in her mother's arms, would grow up in a world slightly better than the one her parents had inherited. Not perfect, not free from struggle, but moving in the right direction. Her very name would remind her of the power of speaking truth, of standing firm, of refusing to accept injustice as inevitable. As they reached their car, Danielle looked back one last time at the hospital, where their lives had changed forever. They tried to silence one woman, she whispered to her daughter. But her voice became the echo of thousands, and in the end, justice was born. What would you risk to challenge a broken system that was never built for people like you? Share this story if you believe healthcare should heal, not harm, and subscribe for more powerful narratives that expose truth and demand justice.